If you're exploring the Catholic faith and have a hunger for understanding what the church teaches, and you desire to hear from some of the voices who made this same trek that you're taking, then I have some resources you should know about. I've managed to narrow this list down to 10, though there are many others, but these are the ones that helped me when I took the journey as a Southern Baptist into the Catholic Church about 10 years ago. But these are still good. I mean, the info doesn't really change. So I'll start out with my list of books, then share other favorite shows, podcasts, etc. Are you ready? Now, the very first book I was ever introduced to has a bit of a story behind it. Before I really started looking at the Catholic faith, I reluctantly enrolled our oldest daughter into a Catholic preschool. It was close to our house, it had top-notch accreditations, and I felt safe doing it because I had asked prior to our enrolling her if I could sit in on a class. And I have to tell you, I was so relieved when I observed no one prayed to any saints. And while at this school, I met one of the other moms who was a very devout Catholic, who, after a series of conversations, loaned me a copy of this book, We Believe, A Survey of the Catholic Faith by Father Oscar Lucifar. I still had this book because my youngest at the time managed to get a hold of it and draw in it with a marker. So I bought her, the woman who loaned it to me, a new one. But this covers everything from why should I believe in God to why did Jesus enter our world and why did he have to die on a cross, as well as how do I pray and the history of the Eucharist. And a few things I really like about this book is every section provides references to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, as well as Bible verses throughout to help you develop a strong understanding of what the Catholic Church teaches and why. Also, it has questions for reflection and recommended activities at the end of each chapter. So you can obviously read this book on your own. I certainly did, but it would also be an excellent book, in my opinion, to go through as a family or with a group of people. And I'll tell you an interesting fact about Father Lucifar is he's the nephew of Father Oscar Huber, who administered last rites to President John F. Kennedy and consoled First Lady Jackie Kennedy after the president's assassination in 1963. And I actually had the honor of hearing Father Lucifar speak not long before he passed away in 2015. Now, you can still get a copy of this book online for just under $10. Now, while We Believe may be a book you've never heard of, number 2 on my list is probably the most known, and perhaps you have a copy. This is the second book on Catholicism I ever read. The first one I ever bought for myself, and that is, I bet you guessed it, Rome Sweet Home by Scott and Kimberly Hahn. It chronicles their conversion to Catholicism. Dr. Scott Hahn, you may know, was a Presbyterian minister. Kimberly, the daughter of a Presbyterian minister. And both were very strong Christians who met at a Christian college and served together in a ministry called Young Life. Maybe you're familiar with that. It's a fantastic story of how they were exposed to Catholicism, their different responses, and their ultimate search for truth. A must-read if you like personal stories. Number 3, I don't have a personal copy of the next book I want to share with you because I borrowed it from a library. But if you like conversion stories, then I promise you, you will want to get your hands on Surprised by Truth by Patrick Madrid. The description, let me just share this with you, calls it an international bestseller all about the one true Catholic faith. Dramatic, witty, touching, moving, and wholly unexpected. Surprised by Truth contains the stories of 11 converts about their personal journey to the Roman Catholic Church. Some of the converts who relay their stories include Marcus Grodi, James Aiken, Tim Staples, as well as Al Cresta. For what it's worth, in case you want to know, I share my conversion story, not in that book, but I'll provide the link so you can watch at least the first part here. Also, if you like what you're learning right now, if you would provide a like by lovingly hitting the like button, I greatly appreciate it. So number 4, what Catholics really believe. 52 answers to common misconceptions about the Catholic faith by Catholic Answers founder Carl Keating. Let me find that book here. This is the type of book that's great to have on your nightstand, have a copy in your car, in your purse or backpack, for whenever you are struck with questions, your own or from someone else. Like number 7, the church teaches that as long as Catholics go to Mass and confess any serious sin, they will go to heaven. Is that true? Do you know the answer? The answer is no. It isn't enough to believe the Catholic faith. You also have to live it. In fact, how you live demonstrates what you believe. We are moving right along to number 5, Confessions of a Mega Church Pastor, How I Discovered the Hidden Treasures of the Catholic Church by former Methodist minister Alan Hunt. In this book, he describes the 6 hidden treasures he found in the Catholic Church by using the analogy of an old house where he explores the kitchen, the dining room, and even the basement. You'll understand when you read it. It's really well written and provides at the end concrete, real life ways to embrace the church and to grow in holiness. It's a good read. He also recommends other books that helped him. You can pick up a copy of your own for just a few bucks online. Number 6, a 2-for-1. Don't read any of these books I've mentioned if you are not also reading. What do you think I'm going to say? The Bible, because you should have this handy as you're reading any of these books and you're studying, as well as the Catechism of the Catholic Church. And even if you don't have a copy of this, if you're going through OCIA, you may be able to get a copy. If they didn't provide one, just ask. I know the first time I went through, it was known as RCIA. Then they gave me a copy. The second time I went through, they did not. But you definitely want a copy of this. Now, to round out our top 10 list, I'm going to share with you my favorite TV show, radio program, podcast, and website. Number 7, if you haven't discovered Eternal Word Television Network yet, also known as EWTN, you need to, because that is where you're going to find a show that I stayed glued to for 5 years, The Journey Home. This show has been on the air for 25 years, and for most of those years was hosted by former Presbyterian pastor Marcus Grodi. He retired a couple of years ago, so now you'll see his son, John Mark, hosting. But the format hasn't changed. A guest is either a revert or convert to the faith, and he or she shares his story. It's an hour-long program, and you often find yourself identifying with the guest's compelling story. Number 8, the radio show Catholic Answers Live. If you want to hear solid theology from some of the leading Catholic apologists, tune in to Catholic Answers Live. It's a call-in radio show where people from all walks ask all kinds of questions and in turn receive solid answers. Chances are you can find it on your favorite local Catholic radio station or download the Catholic Answers Live app where you can listen to past or live shows on your mobile device. All right, so now we're at number 9. The website Formed is excellent. At formed.org, you'll find recorded discussions with well-known Catholic apologists. You'll also find Catholic movies, documentaries, educational programs suitable for young children, prayers you can pray along to, and so much more. Some of the content is free, some you have to pay for, but many parishes offer their parishioners free access by providing a code. So ask your church or OCIA director if you're enrolled in that. Really, it's excellent. Again, formed.org. Number 10, a podcast. Full disclosure, I discovered this after I became Catholic, but I want to share it with you because it is just so good. It's the You Were Born for This podcast, hosted by Father John Riccardo, a Detroit native with a fascinating background, and co-host Mary Guilfoyle, a Marine veteran, by the way. Together, they dive into topics that deal with transforming the church as well as our hearts. It is really just so good. Consider this a 2-for-1 as well, because associated with Father Riccardo's podcast is his Acts 29 website, where you will want to check out the Rescue Project. I'm not going to say much more about it because I feel like I'm running out of time but please check it out. Just trust me, check it out. All right, so there is my top 10 list. Are any of these new to you? What would you want to add? I hope you will share in the chat section for other people's benefit, like my friend Heidi, who reached out to tell me she had been watching my videos and asked for a recommended list of books for her to read. So she actually gave me the idea for this episode. So thank you so much, Heidi. Now, before I go, please allow me to share one more book that I started reading this past week. It is The Spiritual Gifts Handbook by Dr. Mary Healy and Randy Clark. I've only read the intro, and already I know I'm in for an eye-opening, powerful adventure. I bought this book at an event last week where Dr. Healy spoke, and can I tell you, I've wanted to hear her in person for so long, and she did not disappoint. She actually signed my copy. And what you may find very interesting about this book, which I'm guessing is one of a kind, is that it takes an ecumenical approach. Randy Clark is a Protestant and Mary Healy is Catholic. Yet together, they are convinced that the Lord desires to pour out his supernatural gifts on both Catholics and Protestants so that, quote, the king and his kingdom may be revealed on earth. I love that. This is going to be so good. I just know it. Well, thank you so much for joining me on The Good Place. And if you would, consider subscribing if you haven't yet. Hit the bell so you can be notified of future episodes. And until the next one, enjoy the journey as you continue to seek the Lord's truth. Bye. Take care.